The topic I am going to address today is budgetary control system, and this is a very important topic in management accounting. I would like to start the topic with reference to planning and control decisions, which are considered to be very important decisions in any management or any industry or any service. Now, the planning and decision making exercise, it is undertaken at every level of the management. This is what we all know. But the planning requires that we should have the objectives of the firm or the business stated very clearly. Along with that, we need that the fundamental policies of the organization should be laid down, should be circulated, and should be known to each and every single individual working in the organization. Now, this needs something. This needs what? This needs that we should have our plans, our action of plans circulated to every single individual from top to the bottom. And that is where the budgetary control system comes into picture, and that is the topic of my subject today. Now, how do we define budget? A budget is a financial or quantitative statement prepared prior to a definite period of time of the policy to be pursued during that period. If you have noticed that my statement is, it is a financial statement. It means I am emphasizing upon that a budget need to be expressed in quantitative terms. It is a financial statement or a quantitative statement which need to be stated before we actually start our actions. So it has to be in advance, it need to be stated in advance, and it is going to be for a definite period of time. So when we state that we have to achieve X or Y goal, and we say that goal in numbers, we define that goal in numbers, then it is budget. But it need to be for a specific period of time. It means the budget is never for like unknown period. Our budget could be for a day or for a month or for a week or for a year. But we need to know either the budget which we have planned is for how long or for how much period it is. So we can, in a very simple statement, we can say that budget as a plan, it represents a statement of what we are expecting in terms of results. It works as a guiding map. It works as a yardstick that what we want to achieve. There's a definition by Gordon and Schiffling law, and he says budget may be defined as a predetermined detailed plan of action developed and distributed as a guide to current operations and partial basis for the subsequent evaluation of performance. Now, if we actually try to analyze this definition, which is by Gordon, it says it is a predetermined detailed plan. And plan of what? A plan of action developed and distributed as a guide. This is a very correct definition. It has been distributed to the from top to the bottom so that it could work as a guide to current operation as well as for the future operation. So what we want to achieve, that is our objective. That need to be stated and that need to be circulated, but importantly it should be defined in terms of numbers or in quantitative terms. That is how it is going to be termed as budget. Now, after this, I would like to talk about what are the features of budget. The first important feature of budget is this, that it should reflect the managerial plans and policies to be achieved during any particular period. And second feature is this, it expresses either in monetary terms or quantitative terms or both. Now, the important point is why I am been using two terms, monetary terms and quantitative terms. The monetary terms means we are going to assign some value. Whatever we have expressed through budget, we have assigned some value, then it is monetary term. And when I am using the word quantitative, then it means it is going to be in numbers. It may have some economical value or it may not have some economical value. But under both the condition, we will take it as a budget. Either numbers have been used or some economic monetary unit have been used. Under both the condition, it is budget. Another feature required is that it is a comprehensive plan for a definite period of time. It is very important. I have underlined this word, definite period of time. It means for sure there should be some length of period assigned to a particular budget. A budget, as I said earlier, could be for a day, for a week, for a month or a year, or for more than 1 year. So that is what is known as definite period of time. Though it is basically an instrument of planning, but it still provides the basis for performance evaluation and control. So here I am switching from planning to control. It means the budget is something which works not only for planning or coordination, it also works for the very important another function of management, that is control. It means it can be used for as controlling tool in any organization. So that is these are the features of budget. Now after talking about features of budget, now I would like to switch to three different terms which are very important to understand budgetary control system. The first term is budget. Now what is budget? As I said, we have discussed that the budget is a quantitative plan for acquiring and using financial and other resources over a specific forthcoming time period. So that is what a budget. Budget is basically a document, a drafted document planned or prepared in advance. Now, when we prepare this budget, that act of preparing the budget or that document preparation is called budgeting. So that is the difference between budget and budgeting. It means budget in itself is a document which has been designed for future actions, whereas budgeting is it is an action, the action which leads to final document, or the whole process of drafting that document is budgeting. Now after this, the third and the very important or the wider aspect of the budgetary is the budgetary control system. When we use budget to control the actions or organization's activity, it is known as budgetary control. So this is the widest term under the budgetary control system. We can actually emphasize little more on this particular term because this is the subject matter of the talk. Now the budgetary control is a control measure in which the actual state of affairs is compared with the budget so that the appropriate action may be taken with regard to any deviation. It means we will use the budget as a yardstick. Whenever the budget period is over, we will gather the actuals or the data for actuals. We will compare the actual data with what we have laid down as budget, and the difference between the actuals which are achieved and what were planned through budget, the difference of these two is your deviation. So when we use budget as a yardstick for controlling, this is known as budgetary control system. So in the definition, in the statement of J.A. Scott, he says the system of management, control and accounting in which all operations are forecasted and as far as possible they are planned ahead, and the actual results are compared with the forecasted and the planned ones. So this is how we define budgetary control system. So basically, if you really look at whatever we have discussed so far, the budgetary control system is something which assists management for three major managerial functions, and that is planning, coordination and controlling. So these three functions are basically addressed, and they are, to my understanding, the most important function in management, and that is what has been supported by budgetary control system. And that's how I will say that budgetary control system is the most important topic for any student, irrespective which branch he is from or which stream he is from. because budget is something which even a housewife is going to prepare, which even a student in science is going to use, or even a student in marketing or HR or finance specialization is going to use. So this is a very important topic and I would really like to seek your attention on it. The next thing I would like to talk is objectives of budgetary control system. Now, the objective of budgetary control system are: the first important objective of laying down a budgetary control system in any organization is that it supports planning. As I said, planning, we all know, planning is just is something which evolves around the objective of the organization. So how do this budgetary control system supports planning? This is, as I said, it's an objective. So we need to know that how do it do that. See, whenever we make budget, the budgets are prepared with the help of a forecast or the estimates. Now, those forecasts are basically analyzed further and then are defined in the terms of a document known budget. It means the budget is basically to lay down or to emphasize upon what we want to achieve. That is our objective. So the objectives are thrown in the business or in the organization through the vision and the mission statement of the organization, which will lead to further explanation of that what we want to achieve, that is objective. So they are short-term goals. Then the objectives are defined, that how we will achieve those objectives. The actual action plan is being stated in terms of numbers, and that is what is your budget. So that is the first objective, that it should support your planning. Now, the second objective of budgetary control is that it helps in evaluating the performance. Now, how does it helps in performance evaluation? As we said, when we will have a budget drafted in advance for a particular period, say if I say for production or for sales, then we know that these many units of XYZ product has to be manufactured, or these many units need to be sold. That is what is our target in terms of numbers. So it is what is your quantitative plan. So when we have our plans defined in numbers, they are really very objective statements, and no one can actually go for a subjectivity in that case. One has to be answerable that either they could achieve or they could not. If they could achieve, then they will be actually be rewarded for that, and if they could not, then they are going to be punished for that. So basically, performance evaluation becomes easy if we have our objectives defined in numbers or monetary units. So this is the second very important objective of budgetary control system. The third objective of the budgetary control system is defining responsibilities. Now, how do it help in defining responsibility? Basically, when we said that we are going to prepare a budget and they need to be communicated to every individual working in the organization from top to bottom, it means I as an individual know that this is what I have to achieve, or this is what my contribution expected by management. It means the other person also knows that what he has to share in the organization. So basically everybody knows that what and how much they have to contribute. It means the other person who could not attain his targets cannot hold anybody else responsible for that. So we have a very precise responsibility in terms of numbers or expected results. So that is what it is actually, that is how the objective of defining responsibility is being met with the help of budgetary control system. Everybody knows in terms of numbers, their targets are defined in terms of numbers, their responsibilities are defined in terms of numbers or in terms of monetary unit. So this is very important. Now, the fourth objective is that it helps in coordination. It helps or it facilitates coordination. Now, the question is, how does it do that? Coordination is basically that each functional area or the department or the unit for that matter in any organization should be knowing that what they have to perform in case of any action desired, to whom they have to approach, and to whom they should be reporting in the terms of reports or in terms of documents, then to whom they are answerable, and to whom and who can question them. So budgets really helps in coordination. How? It's a very simple thing. I would like to draw your attention here. If any company in automobiles, for example, wants to decide that in the first quarter of 2013 they want to achieve 500 units of X or Y model of the car to be sold. Now, how will they do that? They need to know that what is the market, what is the condition in the market, what is the condition of the economy on those days, or what are the expected condition in the economy. But how many units to be produced will be depending upon what are the market targets laid down by the sales force. Now, how will the sales force will know about that? They will know about their targets through market research, which will be actually shared with the marketing team and the sales team. They will in turn decide that how many units they need to produce. The number of units, the actual number of units to be produced will be decided by the production department, but by referring to the data given by the sales department. Not only this, the production department need to refer to the policy of inventory control, that how many units of the cars unsold are lying on the last day of the previous quarter, or otherwise the first day of the current quarter in question. Then how many units are actually required to be carried at the end of this quarter or this budget period. It means when as a production manager I have to decide that how many units I have to produce, I need to have three data with me. One, how many units unsold I have on first day of the new quarter, how many units I need to have at the end of the quarter or the last day of the quarter, and the third thing, and that is how many units my sales department intend to sell. So these three information will help a production manager to decide how many units to be produced. So did you see the coordination happening? Yes, the marketing department has actually conveyed the number of units they are expecting to be demanded to the sales division. The sales division has informed the production division that how many units they want to sell. And not only this, after that the production division has to design about that how much material, the raw material of different types we need for production. What is the number of the laborers we want, officers we want, overhead expenditure, everything in detail. So that is how the coordination happens, and the beginning point here was the sales budget. So the data provided by the sales department worked as a basis for the production department. Now this production budget will be the basis for the purchase budget, and so on. So that is how the coordination happens, and that's what I want to say, that the budgetary control system facilitates coordination. Now the next objective is it ensures effective communication. As we said, the objectives are laid down by the senior management. They are then promulgated to the lowest possible person in the organization, and then we have to ensure that those objectives are laid in terms of numbers so that we could fix the responsibility which has been achieved by the budgetary control system or by a budget. And then after this it comes that the budgets as are been prepared with the help of the person working at the bottom. So automatically what we want to achieve is been communicated throughout the organization. So that is another objective, that the total targets in terms of numbers for the future are being communicated very well with the help of this small document called as budget. Now the next objective is motivating. How does budget can help in motivating? I have talked about it helps in planning. I talked about it helps in controlling. I talked that it helps in coordination. Now I am switching to next managerial function, motivation, which is another very important function of management. So in motivation, the budgets are basically guiding rules for XYZ. They tells them, look, this is your target and this is what you have to achieve. So basically it is a motivation to the employees working at all levels. Everybody is so clear that what he has to achieve, because his targets are defined in numbers, and that motivates the person to achieve it, because he knows if I will achieve this, this is going to be notified by the management. So that is how it helps in motivation. The another objective and the last objective I will say for this particular lecture is tool of control. The most important objective of any budgetary control system in any organization should be, it should be able to control the different activities in an organization. It should work as a yardstick, and for that purpose the objectives defined or the targets laid down through budget should be attainable. They should not be such that they are putting pressure on the employees. They should not be such that they are just achieved so easily that there is no motivation to work for. So we should have attainable objective defined very clearly through budgets, and that is what is going to help management for overall attainment of the objectives. Now after this, I would like to switch to that how a budgetary control system can be laid down in our organization. If as an employee or if you as a manager have been asked to lay down a budgetary control system in any organization, what steps you do need to take, or how will you pursue that? So let's talk about that now. The first the first step should be, we should define and communicate our objectives very clearly. That is the first step in installation of budgetary control system. It means the budgetary control system, it evolves around the objectives of the organization. So the foremost thing, the basis for starting the budgetary control system is that we should have our objectives laid down very clearly. They should be defined very clearly, and not only this, we should not only define our objectives, rather we should also communicate them to every person working in the organization, so that there is a sense of participation, so that there is a clarity of the goals to be achieved. So that is how we should start with the budgetary control system. Now the first step is over. The second step is, we have to think that we should have a very clear laid down organizational chart and authority relationship. So we call it as organization chart and authority relationship for establishing budgetary control system. Now how do we pursue this step? When in most of the organization, whether small or a big, the objectives are laid down, and after that the chart in terms of hierarchy, the organizational chart in terms of responsibility and authority is being laid down very clearly. So this is an essential or a basis or a must for budgeting control system. It means we cannot have budgetary control system if we do not have well defined organizational chart or authority relationship existing in the company or the business. Why it is required? If you remember from the last discussion we had so far, the objectives are laid in terms of numbers, and we call them as budget, and they need to be communicated, and finally the person is going to be held responsible if not being able to attain those objectives, and is going to be rewarded other way if is been able to attain those objectives. So that is how the budgetary control was working as a control system. So this chart will really define that who was responsible for what, who was supposed to provide the data for the market forecast, who was supposed to provide the data for the sales forecast, who was supposed to provide the data for the production, who is responsible for sharing the purchased material or the details of the raw material purchase or the semi finished products purchase. So that is how it is essential. The second step should be, after defining what we have to achieve, the second step should be that the organizational chart and the authority relationship should be defined clearly. Now the third step is we need to prepare a very important document which is known as preparation of budget manual. This is a very important document and we call it as budget manual, budget roadmap or guiding map or a policy document. You will find different terms used in the organization at different levels. Basically, this is a document, and that document says who is going to be the controller in the budget committee, who are going to be the members in the budget committee, who will be the responsible person for defining the targets for sales, who will be the responsible person for defining the targets for production. So if you actually look at all these statements I made so far, we are talking in terms of a written document or a black and white document stating the authority and the responsibility in that document. So that is what is your budget manual. So budget manual is basically been headed by the budget committee, and budget manual not only states that who is responsible but also talks about the length of the budget period, because we very clearly said this thing that budgets are they are the plans defined in terms of numbers but for a specified period of time. It means, so budget manual need to have that a particular type of budget is going to be for a particular length. It means a cash budget could be on daily basis, could be made on weekly basis, could be made on monthly basis, depending upon what? Depending upon that what is the size of the cash transactions in a company or in a business. That is what is going to decide the length of the period for a cash budget. And that can be true for other heads of the budget, which I am going to address later. So the budget manual is a very important document because it defines everything in advance and brings in a clarity in the organization. Now after this, we will switch to the another step, the next important step, and that is responsibility of budgeting. Once the budget manual is ready, the actual responsibility is been defined in terms of identifying an individual with the name. First thing was budget manual, where we just said the head of the sales will be providing the data for the sales forecast. The head of the production, there we did not say the name. We just said the organization and we said the head. So we define the designation in the budget manual. We did not define the person who is going to be responsible. So here at this step, we will define the responsibility of a person. It means we may have Mr. X as a production manager during any period. We may have Mr. Y as a production manager or a production head in the next period. So we should be defining the responsibility for budgeting at this level. And if you notice, here I am using the term budgeting, not budget. Why? Because I believe you have understood by this time budget and budgeting, they are two different terms. Budget is just a document, a final outcome, a final draft of budgeting activity, whereas the budgeting is an activity or an act of preparing budget. So it means at this moment I am talking about responsibility of budgeting. So budgeting means who will be actually preparing the budget. So this will be a person or maybe a group of person depending upon the size of the organization. If the size of organization is small, then it is just going to be 1 or 2 person. If the size of the organization is very big or large, then there are going to be more than 1 or 2 person in this activity or in this committee. So what we need to understand is this, that here I am talking about action. It means I am talking about the act of preparing budget, which is your budgeting. And we need to define who will be responsible for budgeting for any organization if we want to introduce budgetary control system. So after this budgetary control system, after the responsibility has been defined, the next step is budget period. Though the budget period is going to be documented in the budget manual, as I said, but for every individual year or any financial year, or maybe for the budget period or for a quarter, we need to define the length of the budget for a particular activity or an operation. It means we need to review what we have documented in the budget manual. We need to review that if we have a length of 30 days for the cash budget in the last year, do we need to have the same length, or we want to have a different length because our cash transactions are going to reduce or going to increase? It means, so at this stage we will sit back and look at the length of the budget period for every individual budget. So that is what is your budget period, or defining the length in terms of days, weeks or months or years. We may not have days for every budget. We may not be using the word year or the month or week for every budget. It will all depend. Not only this, you will find that in different organizations or different businesses, the length of budget is been defined differently. Few of the organizations, they define the length of the budget or the budget period, we may call it weekly basis. Other organizations may be defining the length on monthly basis, and other organizations may be defining the length on yearly basis. Basically, the type of the budget will decide the length of the budget, which I am going to address later. After this point, the next step is the budget procedure. So what is budget procedure? Budget procedure is basically when we have to start the act of budget or the process of the budget. It means we need to define who will be starting, what will be the beginning point of gathering the data. Then who will be gathering the data, the first information, and then after that how it will be promulgated to the next authority or the next responsible person. For this purpose, we need to look at two important things, or we need to refer to two factors. First important aspect here is the word key factors. It is also known as limiting factor. It is also known as restricting factor. So what is key factor? Key factor means all those resources which are limited in nature, we assign them as a title of key factor. It means this is a factor or an object or an activity which restricts our freedom or liberty. I would like to elaborate on this. How? For example, you would have a vision that you want to achieve or you want to set up a company which could sell 2000 units of cars every month. So you have that vision, you have that goal in your mind. Question comes in, what do you need to do that? You need to have a very fair plan in your mind. Then you need to have capital for funding that project. After that, you need to know where I am going to procure raw material, who will be providing me the technical support. Then I need laborers to work in the workshop or the work floor. Then I need to have the actual manufacturing machinery or production unit. So these are so many things for achieving a particular objective or a goal for any particular person. You may have a very good plan, that may be very feasible plan. You know from where to procure material, you know the technical specification of the product you want to make, you know from where to procure labor, but you may not have those many funds, right? So here the funds will become a limiting factor. It means capital will become a limiting factor. We may call it as a key factor. Not only this, in other case, person may have capital, person may have lot of funds lying with him, but he doesn't know that which product I should be manufacturing at all. What is the demand in the economy? Either I should be going or investing in the automobile industry or a steel industry. Which industry I should go and invent or venture in? It means here the person has plan but has lack of the plan of the project. He doesn't know, he doesn't have the information. The key factor will be the understanding of the market or the lack of information. Third example, person has money, person has a fair idea as well, person has labor available in the market. For if it is India or China, then definitely there is no problem with the labor, but problem could be with the material. The material I plan to use in my production may not be available in our country, or for that matter maybe a material or a type of material which has been banned to be imported even, right? So in that case your raw material will become key factor. So basically I want to emphasize, before we actually start the budgeting process, we need to define what is going to be the limiting factor, what is going to be the key factor for my organization or for my project for that matter. So that need to be defined in advance. After that, the next point is the forecast. So in the budget procedure, so we are talking about the budget procedure, and under the budget procedure I talked about key factor first, and now I am talking about forecast. Now forecasts are the estimates made about any event, occurrence of any event. So forecasts need to be made with the help of maximum possible data to be availed, to be procured, and then only we should try to forecast about any event. So forecast is another basis for setting up a draft of our plan, which is budget. And then the last step should be the actual drafting of budget, which is your drafting of budget, or we call it as the budget. So the last step will be who will be drafting and what will be the format of the budget. That is what is budgeting. You may express the budget in just a very comprehensive manner, or in a very small or in a concise manner. That is what is your budgeting, right? So these were the steps in budgetary control system if we want to establish a budgetary control system in any organization. After this, we will like to move to few more things like what are the classes of budget, etc. But before that, I just want to emphasize upon one thing, that during this whole concept of budgetary control system, I have emphasized upon one thing, that was budget manual. And in the budget manual we have a very important component known as budget committee, and at this moment I am talking about the budget committee. So budget committee is basically a committee, a body in the organization which is responsible for overall policy matters relating to budget, and also it helps in coordination of the total budgeting process in the organization. So I will really like that budget committee should be shown on the slide. It should be shown to our viewers. The budget committee should be, may I request that this budget committee should be shown to our viewers, please. I think they are getting my request. So overall, okay. So I hope this is clear that how do we pursue the whole budgetary control system in the organization. So it's nothing but a committee. To you it may seem like a normal committee working in any organization, but this is the committee which is responsible for coordination of budget activity for making the forecast to deciding the key factors to actual drafting of the budget and final implementation of the budgetary control system in the organization. Now, let us switch to the very important aspect in the budgetary control system. I may have referred few words so far, but now I am going to precisely talk about the different classes or different types of budgets available. So, the classification of budget is based upon three bases. The first basis I am going to use is on time period. So, based upon the time period, we can classify budgets in four heads. The first head is long-term budgets. Now, the long-term budget means a budget which has the budget period or the life of budget more than 12 months or more than one financial year. That is what is known as long-term budget. So, which function or which budget comes under this head? If you recall, or if you really refer to any organization, the research and development budget is always a long-term budget. Not only this, for most of the organization, the advertising and publicity budget is a long-term budget because these budgets are targeted for more than 1 year, or the time frame for this budget is for more than 1 year. Then second head is the short-term budget, or we may call it as one year budget. The short-term budget is basically for a particular financial year or an accounting year. Here the maximum length of the budget period is 12 months. So what are the budgets comes under this head? For example, production budget, your cash budget, your sales budget, they all come under this head. So this is what is short-term budget. So basically we are defining budgets in terms of the length of the budget. The third budget under this head is your current budget. Current budget is a budget which is precisely made or prepared to meet up a challenge, a sudden challenge or sudden requirement. For example, a company may not be practicing to organize or to participate in trade fair every year. A company suddenly decide that this year we will be participating in the trade fair or any fair for that matter. So the marketing team and if the publicity cell is there, they need to draft a budget to address that activity only. So it has been said a current budget because this is to just address a particular action or an activity or a requirement. So this is a basically very small period budget. So that is how it comes under like current budget. So title has been given as current. And after this, the last under this head is rolling budget. This head is little difficult to understand. Rolling means the length of the budget period keeps on rolling. How come? I will like to explain the rolling budget with the help of one example. Let's assume a company ABC Limited has prepared cash budget for 1 month, and the life of the budget started from 1st January and will last on 31st January, right? So the budget is going to be for 1 month or 31 days in this case. Before this 31 days are over, what will happen? the new budget for the next month, that is February, will be prepared and will be introduced at that point only. Not only this, we will have, if the budgetary system is having monthly cash budget, the moment one budget exhausts, in this case January, the next budget for the next January of the next year is introduced. It means if we have 12 budgets, cash budget in 1 year, the moment 1 month budget is over, the one more month is added at the end of that budget. It means the number of budget period are going to be 12 in 1 year always, and the moment January budget is exhausted, the January of the next year is added. The moment the February budget of the current year is exhausted, then the budget for the February for the next year is added. So we will have all the times, or at any given point of time, we will have 12 budgets. So this is what is known as rolling budget. If we take an example of production budget, and if any plant or any manufacturing company, the budget if prepared on daily basis, so we will have 7 days, 7 budgets for a week. The moment the budget for Monday is exhausted, so the production manager is responsible to add the budget for the next Monday of the next week. It means for at any given point of time, we will have 7 days in the production budget. So that is what is known as rolling budget. This concept is actually very important and a very flexible one and a very helping one for the purpose of controlling and a better planning, because a manager who is responsible for drafting a budget is actually being proactive. He will be preparing the budget for future in advance, and he will be preparing the budget on the basis of the budget which has exhausted. It means the experience which has been withdrawn or been learnt from the past budget will be added in drafting the new budget. So that is how I will say that the rolling budget is a very important budget. So these were 4 budgets based upon time period. Now let's talk to the second head or the second class, and that is the budget based upon flexibility. So under this head we have 2 budgets or 2 type of budget. One is fixed budget and the second is flexible budget. So let's talk about these 2 budgets in detail now. The fixed budget. Fixed budget is something when the forecast, or otherwise we can say the objectives of a plan, are defined for one activity only, or for one level of output, or for one level of production. It means we will be defining our plan in terms of number, which is budget as discussed so far, is for one activity only. If a company defines that I have to manufacture 10,000 units of say motorbikes for January, so it means the rest of the things, either material or labor or overhead, they are going to be defined only for that activity, which is, we assumed, 10,000 units. So that is how it is going to be taken as fixed budget. It means the activity is fixed, and for that activity all the budgets are oriented around that activity. So that is what is fixed budget. Now the next is under this category flexible budget. Now, the flexible budget is something which is very practical, very useful, and is having more than one level of activity. So same company, if I pursue the same example which I took, the same company may have a budget for 10,000 as well as a budget for 7,000 and 12,000 explained on the same sheet, that is draft or a document. So if a document contains 3 levels of activity or 4 levels of activity or 5 levels of activity, and the rest of the elements or rest of the heads follows those 5 activities, then we will say that this is a flexible budget. Why? Because this is defining more than one activity in one document, that is budget. So, it is not evolving around one activity. This is what is being actually used, because it lays down, emphasizes that you may have actual targets somewhere near to 7,000 or somewhere near to 12,000. Because this budgetary control system doesn't work only as planning tool as being discussed, it works as control as well. So, for controlling purposes, we all know we need to have yardstick, and for that yardstick, if we fix the yardstick at one level only, then the actuals may be far away from the what we define in budget. So, it will be a problem for the company or for the organization. In that case, budgetary control will not work as a controlling tool. It will work only as planning tool, which is not our objective. We want the budgetary control should work as a very effective tool of planning, controlling, coordination and motivation. And important amongst these four is the planning and controlling. So, it is really important if a company could fix a flexible budget than a fixed budget, because it will be then the organization, the management will be able to pick up any budget activity as a yardstick for comparison. After this, we will move to the next class of the budget, which is based upon function. And this is something which has been known to everybody around, I believe, in the management or in the industry. This category lays emphasis on functions or operations. Business functions or business operations are defined differently in organizations, but broadly there are 3-4 functions which are being carried over in all organizations, whether small or big. We know the sales takes place, the production takes place, if not production then trading takes place, then we need to have personals, the HR people working in the company, and finally we need to have the finance people working in the organization. So, if the size of the organization is very small, then the functions are limited. But if the size of the organization is big, then the number of functions or the operation activity is very large. Irrespective of the size, the functions which I am going to state or the type of budget I am going to state now are important, and they are there in every organization. The first budget based upon the activities or the operation of the company is sales budget. It's very important to understand at this point that there cannot be any other budget as taken first budget or known as the important budget than the sales budget. Why? If you recall my last example or the last discussion we had, I stated that a production manager cannot decide how many units to be produced until and unless he has the targets in terms of sales. It means the beginning point under the budgetary control system is going to be the preparation of sales budget. Until and unless an organization says I have to sell 1000 units, 2000 units, 10,000 units, that is number of units to be sold, the number of units to be produced or the raw material requirement, labor requirement for that cannot be stated. So, the beginning point is sales budget, and sales budget is prepared on the basis of the past data, on the basis of the forecast made by the marketing team, the research team, the analysts, the past experience, the economic condition of the country, the economic condition of a particular industry, and the economic condition of the organization even. So, the sales budget is the beginning point in the organization. So, this is based upon the function, sales function and the sales budget. Then the second functional budget is production budget. Now, the production budget, as I said, is based upon the sales budget. So, basis for preparation of production budget is sales budget. If we have sales budget ready with us, then we can go for the production budget. Not only the sales budget is being used as the basis for the production budget. Apart from the sales budget, we will refer to the economic condition of the country, the size and the capacity of the plant. We may have demand forecast made by the sales team. We may have requirement put up by the sales team. But can we afford to manufacture those many units? Do we have that much capacity of our plant? That is important to be addressed here. So it may be a key factor. If we refer to the previous discussion, it could be the key factor. Our sales forecast would be 6,000 units, but we know that we do not have a plant which can produce more than 5,000 units. So in that case, this will become a key factor. So this is the second head under the production budget. The third head is the cost of production. Under this, the cost of production budget is basically to decide that what is going to be the quantity and the quality of the raw material produced or used in the production, how many number of people we require for the production, and what is going to be the wage rate. So basically preparing a budget for raw material, preparing a budget for wages or the labor we may call it, and the third overheads. They all three element of cost we call it. So that is what is your cost of production budget. And after this we will be talking about the fourth functional budget, that is purchase budget. The purchase budget is to how much raw material we need to purchase if we are using raw material, how much semi-finished product we need to purchase if we are using the semi-finished product, or if we are into trading, then how many units of the finished product we need to purchase. So that is what is going to be displayed on this budget, and that is what is known as purchase budget. After this, it is personnel budget. As I said, personnel comes under the cost of production, but different organization take it as a different operation. So that is how we take it as a different head of the budget. Personnel means the people working in the company or the organization. We need to define for every activity or for every product we want to produce the requirement for the people, and requirement of the personnel should be drafted in the budget in two ways, in terms of the number of people and in terms of monetary as well. That's how I said in the beginning that budget is quantitative as well as monetary forecast. And after this, the sixth budget is research budget, and every organization which is oriented towards research and development in future, they used to have a research budget, they need to have a research budget. And this is, if you correlate it with the length of the budget, this is basically a long term budget, because R&D activities are always pursued in the long run. And after that, the next budget is capital expenditure budget. This is a very important budget for any organization. If any organization wants to go for modification of the existing infrastructure or plant or machinery, or want to buy or set up a new plant, or even want to go for a new publicity or advertising campaign, they need to have this budget, which we call it as capital expenditure budget. So this is not a budget which emphasizes upon the expenses on material, labor or overhead. That comes under the previous one, cost of production, and this budget emphasizes on the capital expenditure budget. The next budget under this head is cash budget. This is a very important document, because we all know that cash is a very important aspect for any business for the survival. The adequate cash requirement is very important. We should not be having surplus cash or shortage of cash. So this budget helps us to actually forecast the requirement of cash in the budget period, and also the forecast of different sources of generation of cash for that period. So we match up that what is going to be the source of cash generation and what is going to be the medium or the way by which we are going to spend that cash. So payments and the receipts in terms of cash are displayed, are being drafted in a document which is known as cash budget, and it works as a important tool for controlling the liquidity of the company. The last budget under this head is master budget, which is again a kind of comprehensive budget having all the functional budget in it. I will like to show a chart in which we can have a look at the master budget. So if you refer to this diagram, it says the first budget is sales budget, which is the beginning point, as I said. Then it may have under this many heads depending upon the organization, but important one is production budget, and under the production budget we have inventory budget, and after that we have labor budget, different overhead budgets, and based upon these functional budgets we will have at the bottom we will have cash budget. And then finally, with the help of cash budget, we can forecast about the income statement and the balance sheet for the future, which is your master budget. I hope this discussion was helpful to you, and you could actually get an idea, a fair idea about what is budget, what is budgeting, what is budgetary control system, and how these three things are actually important for planning and controlling, or rather how they do support the managerial function planning and controlling. Not only planning and controlling, it also helps in motivating and coordination, but most importantly in planning and controlling. Thank you very much.